Hey everybody, in this video we're installing Bookstack on a Ubuntu server using Docker Compose. Bookstack is a self-hosted platform that allows you to create and organize documentation for your team and organizations. It's a great way to keep track of your knowledge and make it easily accessible to everybody. First we'll install the Bookstack application and database, then we'll install NGINX Proxy Manager to make it easy to access our application, and finally we set up the NGINX proxy host. It's all pretty straightforward, so let's get to it. Let's go ahead and get logged into our server. And let's make sure that everything is up to date. Looks like everything is up to date. So let's go ahead and copy the Docker Compose config file for the Bookstack application and move it over to your notepad. There are 5 variables we need to update here. We need to adjust the app URL. We'll need to adjust the DB password, the DB root password, your time zone, and optionally your port. So let's head over to duckdns.org to obtain a URL to use for this example. Go ahead and get logged in. We can see here that I already have one called Bookstack test. So that would be bookstacktest.duckdns.org. Back over to our notepad. We can adjust the app URL here. We're going to be using HTTPS. That's bookstacktest.duckdns.org. Next, we need to adjust the database password. We have to do it in 2 different spots here, just so to make sure they match. And now we need to adjust the root password. Next, we'll adjust the time zone. And I'm going to leave my port here on 6875, but you can adjust it to whatever you like. Just make sure the inside port stays at 80. Now that we have our Docker Compose config file, let's go ahead and copy this and move back over to our terminal window. We're going to create a Docker Compose YAML file. We can do this by just typing in nano docker-compose.yml, paste in the config, and then Control X to exit the nano, Y to save it, enter to overwrite the file name. And to bring up the containers, it's just docker compose up-d. And this is going to download the image files and spin up the 2 containers. Now that we have our Bookstack app up and running, let's go ahead and install NGINX Proxy Manager. Before NGINX will work, you must forward ports 80 and 443 in your router or your firewall to the box that's running your NGINX container. This process is different depending on the hardware manufacturer, so just see your router or firewall manual for more information on this process. Copy the NGINX Proxy Manager Docker Compose file from the description below. Back over to our terminal window. Type in ls. You should see your Docker Compose file that we created earlier. We no longer need this file, so we can remove it. And now we can create a new one by doing the same thing as earlier. Nano docker-compose.yaml. Now paste in the NGINX Docker Compose config. Shouldn't need to change anything here. Go ahead and Control X to exit this. Yes to save it. Enter to overwrite the file name. And then the same as earlier, docker compose up-d. And it's going to pull down the NGINX Proxy Manager image and launch the NGINX container. Now that we have our NGINX Proxy Manager container running, let's go ahead and browse over to the admin port, which is 81. So head over to your server and port 81. And your first initial login here is just admin@example.com. Password is change me, all one word, all lowercase. Go ahead and sign in. You will be forced to adjust the email address at the beginning and adjust the password. Now that we're logged in, let's go ahead and get a host at the top, proxy host. We're going to add a proxy host. Our domain name here was bookstacktest.duckdns.org. And we're going to forward this over to our server address. And it was on port 6875. Enable these options. And we're going to head to SSL at the top. And we're going to request a new SSL certificate. We need to also enable these options, except for the DNS challenge, and then go ahead and save this. Now we can see that our SSL certificate is enabled and our proxy is online. Let's go ahead and click on the domain here to test it. And here we are. We can see that we are logged in through HTTPS through our domain name, and we're at the login screen. The initial login for Bookstack is admin@admin.com, and the password is password, and we're in. If you have any questions, comments, feel free to leave them below. And as always, thanks for watching.